right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today we're going where everyone's wondering, what's going to happen to our jobs with all these robots and AI getting so smart?
Mm.
We've got a big stack of books here from some pretty big thinkers on this.
Yeah,
and
but great.
they don't all agree, which makes this even more fascinating.
Oh, it's definitely a really interesting time to be thinking about the future of work. We've got this amazing wave of technology happening all around us, but,
Yeah,
it's also making everyone unsure about a lot of things.
for sure.
People are excited, but some people are kind of freaked out too.
It makes sense, honestly. Like if you read Rise of the Robots by Martin Ford,
Yeah.
he's not exactly holding back on the scary stuff.
Right.
Calls it a perfect storm and a tipping point,
Right.
where the robots start taking over.
Being over.
Even the professional jobs we all thought were safe.
Mhm.
It's pretty intense.
It can make you nervous to think about it. What Ford does really well, though, I think, is he connects how fast technology is changing with how disruptive it could be.
Mm.
And he keeps going back to Moore's law.
Yeah.
You know that thing about processing power doubling every 2 years?
Right. Right.
And it's been true for decades. So that means that what AI can do
Oh, wow.
is growing, like incredibly fast.
So is he saying that robots are just going to, take over everything, run the show?
Well, he's definitely saying this time it's different.
Mm.
In the past, automation was mostly for like manual stuff and repetitive tasks.
Right.
But now, with all this AI, machines can do things that need thinking, like problem solving and decision making.
Like us.
Right.
And that's what Richard and Daniel Susskind get into in their book, The Future of the Professions.
Yeah. Mm.
I mean, they're predicting the end of professions as we know them.
Yeah.
Doctors, lawyers, even teachers.
Exactly. They say we're moving to a world where practical expertise, that's what they call it, is going to come from systems, not from humans.
So like a chatbot that can, write your will.
Or like, imagine like an AI tutor that can teach every student in just the way they need.
So are we all out of a job then?
Well, they don't think so. The Suskins, they
Oh.
think professions will change a lot, but they see good things too.
Okay.
They think this could give everyone access to knowledge and experts, like way more than now.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if everyone, no matter how much money they have or where they live, could get medical advice or legal help or like personalized education.
Right, from a system.
Right.
Wow, that's kind of mind-blowing. It's like all that expert knowledge would be available to anyone.
Exactly.
You mentioned expert systems earlier, though.
Yeah.
What makes them different from just, like, Googling something?
Well, it's not just finding information, it's more than that.
Oh.
These systems can look at complicated things, use what they know for specific situations, and even learn and change as they go.
That's pretty different.
Like, think about it this way. It's like reading a medical textbook versus talking to a doctor who's really smart and knows your whole health history.
Okay, that makes more sense. So
Yeah.
they're not just like, I'll better Google, there's something else.
Right.
Let's go back to Ford, though, for a second. He talks about IBM's Watson, winning Jeopardy. And
Yeah.
Google having AI that recognizes cats in those YouTube videos.
Yeah.
He's using those as proof that machines are getting close to humans. Are you convinced?
Those are super impressive, definitely.
Yeah.
But they also show how we need to think carefully about all this AI hype.
Right.
Like, everyone hears about these breakthroughs and thinks, oh, machines are going to be, conscious, like us.
Right.
But it's not that simple.
So we shouldn't believe everything we hear about, like, the robot apocalypse.
Exactly. It's easy to get swept up in the excitement, but AI systems, even the really advanced ones,
Yeah.
they still have limits. They're good at specific tasks. That's how they're built. But they don't have the same general intelligence and flexibility that we do.
That's a really good point. Speaking of hype, I was reading an article in New Scientist, and they were talking about this potential AI bubble.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
Like, what if everything is just way overblown? They pointed out how we talk about AI, learning, thinking, being cognitive. They said that can be misleading.
It's true. The words we use really do shape how we think about technology. We give these systems human qualities, even though they're not human.
So, like, we make them scarier or maybe more impressive than they actually are.
Exactly.
So how should we be thinking about AI then? Because there's all this amazing stuff it can do,
Right.
but then also all this worry about the dangers.
I think that's the core of the whole thing. We have to see both the good and the bad and not oversimplify.
That makes sense. And even when, someone makes an AI system with the best intentions,
Right.
there can still be bias,
Oh, definitely.
like with those algorithms for hiring or deciding who gets loans.
It's like they pick up our own biases. you know?
Exactly.
And it's true. Technology often reflects the values and biases of the people who make it.
Hmm.
And that's a big deal for AI because those algorithms can really change people's lives.
So what do we do about that?
Well, we have to know it can happen. We have to make sure the people making these AI systems are diverse, so they represent everybody.
Yeah,
And we need ways to check if these systems are being used fairly, like keep an eye on them.
that's a big job.
It is. It's complicated, but we can't ignore it.
It's like we've got these really powerful tools, but also this huge responsibility that comes with them.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder if we're ready.
Yeah.
And that brings up the whole thing about laws and rules, policies to shape the future of work.
Exactly.
We can't just assume that everything will work itself out, right?
No. We need to be proactive so that automation doesn't cause problems like people losing jobs and the gap between rich and poor getting bigger.
Right. And this is where Brynjolfsson and McAfee's book, The Second Machine Age, comes in.
Yes.
They say we should be working with machines, not afraid of them.
Yeah.
They argue for this human-machine collaboration.
Exactly. We need to race with machines, not against them. That's what they say.
Interesting.
They point out what makes humans special, creativity, empathy, critical thinking.
And they're saying those will be even more important as machines do more of the routine work.
Yeah.
That's a pretty different view from the scary stuff we were talking about before.
It is.
So are they saying everything's going to be okay? Like, we can all just relax and let the robots do their thing?
Well, not exactly. They are optimistic about humans and machines working together.
Okay.
But they also say we need the government to do things, like invest in education and training so people are ready for the new jobs.
Right.
And they emphasize things like safety nets, so that people who lose their jobs to automation are still okay.
I think what I'm getting is that we don't really know what the future of work will be like.
Yeah.
There's so much going on, and it's not going to be simple.
No, it won't.
It's not just black and white.
That's why it's important to look at all these different ideas, to question what we think we know, and to really think about what we're doing today.
Yeah.
Because what we do now will shape the future.
And I feel like we're just getting started here. There's the ethical stuff, how different industries will be affected, and, what new kinds of jobs might exist.
Yeah.
But maybe we should take a break for now.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. It is a lot to take in.
It is.
We can come back and talk about it more in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good. And for everyone listening, we want to know what you think. Have you ever worried about a robot taking your job?
Yeah. What about you?
And what skills do you think will be super important in the future?
One thing that's been on my mind is with all this talk about automation changing jobs, we keep focusing on those high skill, high tech kind of jobs.
Yeah.
What about people who are already doing the jobs that, some people see as low skill or routine?
Right. That's a great point.
Yeah.
We talk about robots taking over for like doctors and lawyers, but there are tons of people whose jobs are already changing fast. Like warehouse workers,
Right.
truck drivers,
Yeah,
even people working in fast food.
exactly.
Their jobs are being automated and not everyone's benefiting from it.
Yeah, and it's easy to forget the whole digital economy. It needs a lot of people working behind the scenes.
Yeah.
All those coders, the people cleaning up data, the ones moderating content, they're the ones actually making this automation revolution happen.
It's like a hidden layer of work
Yeah.
that most people don't even think about.
Right.
And a lot of those jobs, they don't pay well, they're not secure, and the conditions can be really tough.
Exactly.
So then it becomes a question of, is automation ethical?
Right.
Who's winning here and who's paying the price? Are we just making one group of people do the work that another group used to do?
It's a real concern. And that brings us to this idea of a guaranteed basic income, which has been getting a lot of buzz lately,
Yeah, I've heard about that.
as a way to deal with, people losing jobs to technology.
So is that like just giving everyone free money, no strings attached?
That's basically the idea. People who support it say it would give a safety net to those who lose their jobs because of automation,
Okay.
and also give people the freedom to maybe go back to school, start a business, or just, have more time with family.
It sounds almost too good to be true. But I bet a lot of people would say that just makes people not want to work, right?
Sure, there are definitely concerns and downsides. People worry about how much it would cost, what it would do to prices, and whether people would still be motivated to work.
Yeah, it's not a simple issue.
It's complicated, yeah.
So what's the alternative? If we're not going to give everyone a basic income, how do we make sure people don't get left behind as automation changes everything?
Well, in The Second Machine Age, Brynjolfsson and McAfee, they say we need to focus on education and training.
Right.
People have to race with machines, they say, by always learning new skills and knowledge so they can stay ahead of what machines can do.
So does everyone need to become a programmer now?
Not necessarily, but everyone needs to be ready to learn and adapt.
Hmm.
The jobs of the future, they're probably going to need a mix of technical know-how, creativity, critical thinking, and also social skills.
Those are some pretty demanding skills.
These are.
How do we make sure everyone has a chance to learn those?
That's really important.
Yeah.
We need a big investment in education and job training, and also a change in how we think about learning.
Right.
Not just as something you do once, but as something you keep doing your whole life.
Okay, so we need to be learning and evolving, just like technology is.
Yeah.
But what if, even with all that education and training, some jobs just disappear because of robots? What happens to those people?
That's when we need to think about those safety nets and support systems we talked about, making sure people have healthcare, a place to live, and other essentials, whether they have a job or not.
I'm seeing how all of this, the education, the safety nets, maybe even changing our whole economic system.
Yeah.
It's not just about finding the right policies, it's about what we value as a society.
Absolutely. We have to decide what kind of future we want. Do we want everyone to benefit from technology, or just a few people while everyone else struggles?
That's a big question. And it's not just about work either. It's about fairness and equality and what kind of society we want.
Exactly. It's a question we need to answer together, because what we choose today will shape the world of tomorrow.
This is really making me think. It's easy to get caught up in the everyday stuff and not think about the bigger picture.
You know what you mean.
Where are we going as a society,
That's why these conversations are so important, to question what we think we know and to try and see things from different points of view.
Yeah.
The future isn't set in stone. We're building it together.
Okay, so we've talked about how automation affects different kinds of workers.
Right.
The challenges of being ready for future jobs and what policies might help. But there's something else we haven't really talked about yet. What it's like to live in a world where work is totally different. The psychological and social impacts.
Oh, that's really interesting.
For a lot of people, work isn't just about money. It's about having a purpose, feeling like you belong, and connecting with other people.
Yeah, like what if those traditional ways of working start to disappear? What happens to our self-worth, our communities, how we relate to each other?
Exactly. It's like we need to rethink what work even means.
Right.
How do you have a good life if traditional jobs become rare?
Those are big questions, and I don't think anyone has all the answers yet.
I know. It's a lot to think about.
It is.
But I think that's where we need to go next, in the last part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where things get really interesting. With all this talk about work changing, it made me think about something in that What is the Future book by John Urry. He talks about how we need to really think critically about future studies and be more involved. He's saying we can't just let the future happen. We have to shape it.
Right.
And that ties into what we were saying about bias in technology.
Oh, yeah.
If we're not careful, the future of work might just reflect what tech companies want,
Right.
or the people who already have power.
Definitely a risk.
So are we talking dystopian future?
Yeah.
A few big tech companies controlling everything and everyone else fighting over scraps? Is that what Urry's getting at?
Well, he's definitely concerned about technology making inequality worse.
Right.
But I'm also saying we have power, as individuals and as a society.
Okay, so it's not all bad news.
Right.
But how do we actually do that? How do we make sure the future of work is good for everyone?
Well, he says we need to move past those old ways of thinking about the future.
Yeah.
Well, ones that say technology controls everything. He wants us to be more participatory, to include lots of different voices and viewpoints.
So instead of just engineers and CEOs deciding what work will be like,
Exactly.
we need to hear from workers, communities, people who are often left out of these conversations.
Absolutely. We have to think about the ethics, the social impact, the good and the bad of all this technology. And the people who will be most affected, they need to have a say.
I like that, making the future more democratic.
Right.
So that everyone has a voice in building the world they want to live in.
Yeah.
But how do we actually do that?
It's a huge challenge, for sure.
Yeah.
But there are people doing great things already.
Oh, yeah.
There are groups teaching communities about AI and its impact, activists pushing for ethical tech, and even politicians trying to figure out new rules for the digital economy.
It's we need to rethink what progress even means. Instead of just being excited about new tech, we have to ask, progress for who? and what are we giving up for it?
Exactly. And we can't be afraid to challenge the ideas behind how technology is developed, the focus on efficiency, productivity, and this idea that progress is inevitable. Maybe it's not.
This deep dive has really been eye-opening. It's so easy to get caught up in the shiny new gadgets and forget about the human side of things.
It is.
The future of work isn't just about robots and algorithms.
Right.
It's about people, what they hope for, what they're afraid of, what they dream about for a better future.
And that's what's so interesting about all this. Even with the challenges and the unknowns, we have this incredible chance to make work better, fairer, and more meaningful for everyone.
So for everyone listening, I think the message is clear. We're building the future together.
It's not just happening to us.
The choices we make now will shape the world we live in tomorrow.
So ask questions, challenge assumptions, and get involved.
Yeah, don't just be a bystander.
And as we wrap up, we really want to hear from you. What are your hopes and fears about work in the future? What skills do you think will matter most? And what kind of future do you want to create for yourself and for everyone who comes after us?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you learned something new and maybe even feel a little bit more hopeful about what's possible. The future is out there waiting for us to shape it. Let's make it a good one.